Well, welcome. So glad you're here because this is a real opportunity today to hear from Mary Jane Quick, who is, I guess you might say, a self-described late starter.
Absolutely.
Making a
No doubt.
trying to think of the other words that she'd use. Well, maybe emerging. And it's an interesting story how she, after not making art probably since elementary school, middle school, um, saw a piece of art and was very caught up and engaged in the message of the art piece, but also in the medium, which is kind of one that a lot of us don't know a lot about, which is encaustic, where you use either hot wax or cold wax and mix it with the pigments. And encaustic has been around for centuries. They find it in archaeological sites in all different cultures, and it lasts. So we're going to hear about how this kind of caused her to make a little right turn, maybe a little tangent, a little journey that she hadn't anticipated to learn more about this medium of encaustic. So she then proceeded to take in-person classes and a lot of online classes. And I'd have to say is pretty prolific because I saw her work on Instagram, and then I knew that she'd had an exhibit at Stonewall and was very well received. And a lot of those pieces ended up finding permanent homes. Mm-hmm. So when I talked to her late spring, early summer, mm-hmm. She didn't have as much work as she'd had a few weeks before that. She had that exhibit. And so we were talking about time frames, and she had some traveling to do this summer and stuff. I'm going like, I don't know. We could, I said, well, we pitched it out. Okay, August and September. And boy, you were on fire. Something.
She asked for it, and I brought it.
I know. Sometimes too, a deadline has a lot to do. At least I'll speak personally, whatever kind of deadline. And so she came in then with a lot of this, which is new. And there is a piece out in the showcase as well. So I'm just happy to. She's going to have the opportunity, and we're going to learn from her. And if there'll be time for questions afterwards. So she's got some really interesting things to help you understand the process of working with wax. So
thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, let's give her a covenant welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Tori because she came to the exhibit at Stonewall. And it was like for what was called Lesbian Visibility Week. And how many ever knew, right, that there was even a Lesbian Visibility Week? I didn't until this past year, and it just called to me that I needed to do something. So at that time, I actually approached friends, and then I had to seek out young people because most of my friends are more in their 50s to 60s, even early 70s. And approached young people about wanting to include them so it would be more inclusive and diverse. So I had 50 small, the size of this one. I did 50 portraits of lesbians in the Columbus community for Lesbian Visibility Week, and it was quite fun. But then I also had other work that I had done as well. So each person who was in it was given their piece of artwork, just gifting them to thank them for their opportunity to do that. But one of the things I really did want to mention was talk about how it did come about, right? Because she had mentioned like when I was a really good student for a while, right? AB for sure as a young person. And I took art in middle school, which was junior high back then, and got a C. And that was like, well, you might as well have given me an F, right? So that was a message, right? The message is that we all take, like what anything means to us, and C clearly indicated to me that one thing you are not is good at art. So I just put that away, and I was never really deeply interested in it, but I would color, right? Maybe paint a little bit. So I just never, ever did really art again, much, right? And so then I go to, even in high school, I don't even remember an art class, but I know we had to take art, but I don't remember the class. But I get, how many of you go to Winter Fair? Right? Oh, you have to go to Winter Fair. So just prolific artists for in early December selling their artwork. And so I met this woman, and I bought this small piece, and her name is Marge Luttrell, and she had many, 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 many different small pieces like this that were really funny. So this one says, "If I'm ever on life support, unplug me and then plug me back in," right? And see if it works. I mean, how many of us do that for many different things? Mine is probably coffee, like I need to be picked back in. But she did have the most beautiful artwork to me of these encaustic pieces that were, like 24 by 36. And I said to my partner, I have to learn how to do this. I have to learn how to do this. And so in that moment, I feel like it was a pivotal moment in my life where my interest switched to want to do something different and learn and grow and just explore in a way that I hadn't done in a very long time. We can get into our grooves, right? My groove was social work, counseling. I worked for Columbus City Schools, serving homeless children and youth for in that program for over 10 years. But in essence, that field was my world, right? We you can think about what are aspects of what are in your world, right? And so for me, going into art was just frightening. It was like, what do you think you're doing to even consider doing art when you got a C in junior high school, right? So it took me a long time. It took me a year and a half before I got in my first class. So there's a wonderful artist, Bev Golding, who was my instructor twice down at the Cultural Arts Center. She taught beginner encaustic classes, and so I signed up for a class and had not a clue what she was talking about. She used the word substrate, and I'm like, I don't know what a substrate is. What's a substrate? And then she would reference paint, and I'm still in my head of regular paint. So she's referencing very typical things that are used in art, but also in caustic, but are unique within themselves within encaustic, right? So a substrate can be many things, but it's typically wood, right? So we start out with these things. As you can see, these are what's over here. This is how I start, like this, like this. And as you can see, I'm still working on a small, kind of a contained level, and because bigger is intimidating, right? And that's my substrate. But you can use lots of wood, right? But I typically use those. But if I will buy pieces, like, you go thrifting, you find those already made with those words, just cover them, you got already made substrate. And they have specific things you have to put down. So this is called encaustic gesso. It's specifically made to hold the wax. So regular gesso and paint doesn't have the grab, in essence, of being able to maintain it, because it is heavier than, well, I don't know, I think a lot of things might be heavy, but in essence, it is specific to that. So I typically start out, that's like my first layer, is to get that encaustic gesso on there and let it dry. And from there are so many different ways of creating an encaustic painting, right? And so encaustic painting is when I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking of paint. It's really not paint. It's also colored paint wax, right? And so they come in many different ways, but they're little cubes. I'll pass them around so you can see. They also find cake like this that you can utilize. And then it's like, but how do I even get it on there? I don't know how you get the wax on there. And what it is, you heat it up. So I went through it then, I got myself a little griddle, right? So this is really my palette to get it onto the wood. And really, so my instructor, in one, I take an online class, it's called Painting with Fire, and she's from Ireland, and she engages 25 different artists from around the world, and they each teach 2 classes in a year. Her hot plate is as big as this table. So she lays it out. So I'm kind of in a limited space, but it still serves me really well, right? So what we typically do is start with clear wax. It's just called the encaustic medium. That's what it is. So what I do is I take this and I just set it on the plate and it starts to heat up. Thank you very much. You're welcome. And from there, to me, it's almost endless because these paints, these wax paints, are really kind of expensive. They go from like $10 to $30, $40, just something like this size. And so what I sometimes do is I'll just take it and put it on, and it's wet, right? And then I'll drip this onto that simply to expand it. And it still maintains the beauty of this color to me. It doesn't weaken it. What would change it is if I added white wax, right? So it gives me endless opportunities. Like I don't feel like I have to go to Blitz and buy all the colors that they have. They have an entire display of the endless colors. And I would have to get another job to do that. And I am very committed to staying retired. I don't have to go back to work for anything, including buying my paint. So I love being able, and they show that within the videos, like how to expand, how to explore, how to do anything. So, and then we use natural brushes. So these are typical brushes that I use all the time. And as you can see, they're really hard, right? They dry up. And what you can do with soy wax is, I don't really chemically don't know how it works, but I have one just soy, and if I want to change the color, I can put this in the soy wax and it dissipates the wax so that I can use it with a different color. It's kind of like cleaning your brush. You use soy wax to clean the brush. Or you can just leave it solid, like you can kind of see I leave that solid. And then when I'm ready and I need a brush and I would like to use this one, all I have to do is put it on the plate. And it'll make it warm. It'll make it warm enough. But we keep it pretty low, like you don't want it smoking, right? It can, right? It's something that it creates a smell and creates smoke if it's too hot. So we have to have really good ventilation. Fortunately, I use my sunroom and we have windows all around. So I have a fan going on high. I open up each window at the end to keep it going. But professional artists, I mean, they have like a whole system. I mean, it looks very plumbing-like. I don't want to go there, right? I just like it, like, yeah, I'm trying to keep it simple and just to really enjoy and loving the process of what I consider really learning. Because I've been doing it now maybe 8 years, and I still feel very much like a beginner. As much as I produce, I feel like sometimes I'll think, how did I even do that? Right? I had no idea how I made that happen because the wax has its own process. You know, it really takes control. You can't control the wax. You know, I can put it on, I can try to place it where I want, but it may not go there. And so I'm constantly like, oh, it's not gonna go. And so I make a lot of mistakes. And so what I'm learning is that if I get enough wax on there and I have different colors, and I've totally screwed up a piece, I just start flowing with it, and I love it. It turns out to be its own unique piece, and I feel like the wax created this piece. It took over its own process, but it allowed me like to just kind of push it around and let me. I'm kind of missing a piece, which is how do I move it around? Because I put the wax on typically by a brush. I could pour it. The ones that were in a tin, if they're heated, if I wanted, I could just pour it. I can pour it once it's heated. I can just pour it on the piece of wood, move it around if I wanted. But what I do use, and I regret not bringing it, is a hair dryer. It's like a high-end hair dryer. It's just a higher level. A lot of artists also use torches. I do not. I'm a triple, no, I'm a quadruple fire sign Sagittarian. I'm really afraid of catching the house on fire. So really, I'd be like, let's see what happens. And it'll be like, we would be like, what did you do? I'd be like, the house. So I have not done a torch, but it's really another way of moving the wax around. And so I kind of wanted to bring some examples of what I do. Obviously, there's examples up there. Like with this small piece, I did not use the encaustic gesso. You can tell because it's not white in the background. I do on occasion use clear gesso. It has it almost feels like sand, and it's enough to grab the whatever it is that I'm putting on. And what I did was put on this one, I actually used a who's those in here? What's that thing you use to cut it out of? A pattern. Yeah, this piece of pattern, right? We kind of see the lines, right? So it gives movement to the piece. So you can use tissue papers and not too heavy. Well, people, you don't have, sorry, encaustic gesso. You can also cut out heavy watercolor paper and glue that onto the substrate, and that can be used as a piece. So some people do paint on watercolor paper. It's heavy enough to take paint, but you can't add a lot of paint. You can't do 10 or 12 layers. I'm a person that typically uses between 4 to 8 layers of paint, but there's artists out there that use, it's so thick that you can see each level. It's really a beautiful process. It's not something that I typically do. But so then, this is the encaustic paint. Then I started with a transfer of a tree that I transferred on and then painted over with more encaustic paint. So you can kind of feel it, smell it. It doesn't really smell now. And then this piece, I wanted to show you because I walk around and find found materials all the time. And it's so weird because I feel like when I'm out walking, they jump out at me. I'm sitting in the middle of the road. Oh, and then I find big pieces. I found this awful piece of metal. It's this big and that big, and I haven't done anything with it yet. But the goal is to do something. So I incorporate that. I find found objects bringing the past into the present. Just resonates for me. That we're all in this together, and this thing from the past is to go in there, right? So and it's some of these washers are heavy. I mean, I found round, it was this big, it's pretty thick, and I'm oh, how do I get on there? And I typically, like, these are just glued on with like E6000 glue. It's pretty, it's sturdy. I don't think it's coming on. But there are some that I am concerned, like that no amount of wax and glue is going to hold it over time. And so when, what I do is I add nails like that are, they look rustic, kind of add to the piece, and that helps stabilize them. I've also seen, and I may start to do this, where before you add them is to drill through the wood and then wire them on. I've not done that, but I would definitely consider doing that with heavier pieces. Because you really don't want to have that combed off. What do you do with that? So I'll let you look around that. And you can see with this one, I cut, one of the things I love to do, I found is I love to cut into the element, straight into the wax. So I like to make the lines in the wax and bring them out. And so, sorry, you can pass those around. And so that's kind of like what I do. But let me share these are different things I use. I use stencils. I use these fat crayons, which are really fun. And it's kind of like learning what materials work well with the wax, right? Because some don't work well with the wax. There's kind of an ongoing rule. There's a rule that you're not supposed to use acrylic paints. So I never used acrylic paints. I would use watercolor. I would use wash paints. I would use oil paints. And then I was doing a workshop, and the woman used acrylic paint. And everyone's like, you can, it won't last. And so it's really interesting. I end up using just acrylic on creating a background. So I brought these because these are very much part of the work that's hanging in your church right now. And you might not know it. When you look over there, it's like, where are they? And so I take a photo, and then I, have any of you ever seen these fancy jelly plate? Have you seen a jelly plate before? Kind of feels like jelly, that's what it's called. And again, I'm very much a beginner to this. I tend to stick to one color, you know, you can use 3 or 4 colors at a time, but I'll take this off and you can feel it. Maybe. It's been long already. You can put that off while I'm talking about. So what you do is you take the photo, you take a very light coat of acrylic paint, roll it on there, just like this. Roll a light, I know, right? See, yeah. Thanks, so thank you so much. So you got this, and you put just put like 3 dots on there, and you roll it, right? And then you have the photo. You put the photo down, you roll it, you just rub it in, and then you take that piece of paper off. The image transfers onto the jelly plate. For me, about 3 out of 10. So I make a lot of that don't work out. And then you take a piece of tracing paper, and that you put it on like this, and you press, and then you pull it off, and you get pictures. So, right? So there's some ones that I did, and so you can kind of pass those around to get a sense of how that looks. And so that piece of paper is embedded in my artwork. And on some of them, I actually will place underneath. One of the things I enjoy doing is placing written text underneath it, so those words come through. So you've got maybe words with a regular piece of paper that you glue on, and then you glue that on and make it really solid. You don't want bubbles, and that's always really challenged. You shake your head, yes, you must know a little bit about bubbles. Yeah. Do you do certain kinds of art that bubbles?
I've done some watercolor.
Okay, all right.
Pastel.
Yeah, so you're kind of dealing with that. And so that's the foundation. And that's when, after that piece is on there, that's when I typically add the clear wax, this wax medium. And I do 3 to 4 layers of wax because, and I'm probably going to start doing more because I've learned I really like knife. I like making marks and cutting into the wax, but I don't want to cut into the paper. So I want to make sure that there's enough wax there that it maintains the stability of the wax structure so it won't crack either over time. If it gets too thin, it makes it vulnerable to crack. So, and then from there, once that's on there, I got my wax on there. That's when, to me, my level of, okay, now what am I going to do? Right, I've got this person down there. I typically do women. I'm thinking about to do more nature, but I haven't done that yet. But that's what it's kind of get some trees in there like that. And but then that's where what am I going to do next? And one of the things that I've learned is I like using stencils. I mean, stencils are my friend. And I also love the flowers. So like you'll see, like I've been buying flower stencils, which I really like. And this one, I can tell you right now, rounds are kind of tricky. And this one over here has one of these, right? Maybe, I don't know what it's for. But you can kind of see how I use the circles in her picture. So, and then all of these are little stencils. And so I use a lot of, I feel like they really give me a lot of guidance to how to proceed forward and to how can in this image, how can I expand on this person's beauty and the essence of who they might be, in this photo. So that's kind of like, and then I might cover it again with wax, clear wax, and then again I may not. A few other tools that I like to use are, these are called blending sticks. They're based in oil, so they're it's really interesting that when they're done and I stop using, they create a hard coat themselves. See, again, they have their own brain. Okay, she's done. And then it becomes hard. And then when I want to use it again, I can cut it off, right? And then I can just go like this, and rub it in, and just, that's typically, I use my fingers a lot when I'm using blending sticks. But because they have oil in them, I have to be patient because they don't dry quickly. I am still mastering patience. So, I wait like maybe a day, maybe 2, check on it. Because it takes I think it has a lot to do with what's in the humidity and what the weather is like. And so these create a lot of color and you can mix them together. And so I put that on straight, usually with my fingers. And then also these little metallic jelly things, they're kind of similar. That you rub it in, but you can also add more wax and spread it out. It kind of can change over time. So these are the type of materials that I pull from almost every time I do a painting. So that's kind of, and with And have you ever heard of pan pastel? For a long time, I didn't know what a pan pastel was. People would talk, I use my pan pastel, and I'm like, no idea. Well, it's so easy, pan pastels. And so they're very shimmery, really easy to put on. You do your finger, but I sometimes will use makeup sponges to put it on. And a couple of times they're in the golds and the metallics. I've actually used it as kind of outlining the frame, and I've really been pleased with that. That was something that I call a public surprise. I like it. So. So when it gets cold, I have to shut my windows. And so usually when it's really cold, I stop doing encaustic because the weather and the nature and really Mother Earth is saying now is not the time. It's not the best time to do encaustic, and at least at my house, right? And so when I first was doing encaustic, I was learning that I was kind of obsessed about, I mean, really, I was kind of crazy obsessed. I mean, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, be down there till 8, and literally be like, how long have you been up? I'm like, 5 o'clock. I mean, I'm really like kind of obsessed about wanting to create. And so since I stopped in concert, it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because I don't know how to paint, right? That's my head. I don't know how to paint. So I went online and, but I receive an artist journal every month, an online artist journal, and I'm gifted in having that. There's always an artist who does a series in this journal. There's a woman named Kate Morgan. Some of you may know Kate Morgan in Columbus, Ohio, who is a great artist, but it's not her. The Kate Morgan that I did an online class with lives in Massachusetts, but she does a lot of imagery with women and collage with paint and watercolor, and that's where you're going to see the paintings that are framed. So this kind of style of kind of playing with primarily a woman's space. So what you start with, and then you create the collage. And so what I got from her was a real sense of depth, real sense of joy, like this mystery, playfulness, a whole variety of feelings that emerged that I see in her paintings. But I think she helped, like if I download, there's a website called Unsplash. And Unsplash is a copyright-free photography website. And if you ever want to look at pictures and go down a rabbit hole from which to never return, just go to Unsplash. So you can say you want a water scene from Ireland. Just put in Ireland, right? I mean, they have photographers from around the world just post, and you can use their pictures without request. So that's where I get the majority of my faces. And so I usually kind of go into collage during hibernation, right? You are all starting up, right? And so like fall is here. And so you can imagine all the things that you're thinking about and wanting to do within your community. And so I actually begin to think, okay, if I'm finishing up encaustic, and I'm still, I may be able to do encaustic year round the way the world is changing, so we'll see. But kind of hope we can stay cool enough, so I can do collage instead. So right now I'm also kind of getting into exploring making spirit dolls. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And that's been kind of fun. I wish I should have brought one, but I feel like that might be, I'd like to open it up for questions. Thank you for coming.
I have a question, but
Okay.
I would think you might try a lime sponge.
Oh, yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. I haven't seen people do love sponge, but that makes total sense. It would get a lot of texture, right?
And,
Yeah.
and oil, so.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for that suggestion. I'll be glad to do that. Thank you.
Do you have a website?
I do not. I have an Instagram page, and so I have a Facebook page, and that's more social, but I kind of leave my Instagram is where I post my art. So you can always reach me through there, just send a message. But it's Mary Jane Quick 59, which was the year I was born. So it's anyway, Quick. So please visit it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Well, just a couple of things.
Yeah.
You are not only gifted in, you're creating in this new form for you.
Thank you.
Gifted teacher.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you.
The way
Thanks.
you shared and how much we can learn. It's just a couple of things that technical things really. You don't tend to put encaustic pieces under glass.
No, but I have. I've broken that rule. But there is kind of like that, you don't have to, which is really kind of nice, right? Then you don't have to worry about ever breaking a frame. And it sometimes, it can collect dust like anything else. So sometimes if a person were to have a piece of encaustic art, you could just dust it easily, just to buff it back up in a way. It's like shining up your own little, like how you would clean a glass or something. You can just kind of clean up because it can, it adheres, right? When you felt it, did you feel how it could adhere? Things could, well, dust does happen in my home a lot. What else? Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
There is no answer that I'm searching for here. There's no right answer. I'm curious if there is a role that, whatever these words might mean to you, but like either faith or spirituality, how that plays into your journey as an artist and all these incredible creations that you make.
I think I focus on creating beauty. There's so much negativity in this world. So, and I did mention in my artist statement that I'm a feminist. So within that construct of words that are important to me is I want to bring out the energy of the feminine. We are out of balance. To me, we are so out of balance. The masculine is killing us all in war and the policies that we pass. And so to me, that's political, but it is also spiritual. So when I do a painting, I want the beauty of the one. I'm holding a picture of a person that I may or may not know, and I want to honor it and bring forth a positive energy, a powerful energy, a beautiful energy, a loving energy. And so I would hope that if you were to look at those, that would come forth. I mean, some of them might be more like questioning. I feel like this is one where she's kind of questioning, like she is bad. She's like, I got control. She is harnessing her inner animal energy. We all have energy. We connect with animals, right? We connect with all of that is around us, whether it's positive or negative. So she is, I kind of regretted putting a leash on her on the, so then I had to fix her up. So it's like she's still, we do have to harness our energy, or it could be really negative, right? So I feel like I had to reframe that okay, I'm okay with it now. And this one, to me, is destination unknown, right? And to me, she's really questioning, where do I go next? And isn't that the question for all of us? You could ask yourself, what am I going to do next? Well, I know you're going to go to church, right? And still, it's like, what am I going to do next? Both physically emotionally, spiritually, is to figure out where are we all going? Where are we going? And we do that individually, but we do that collectively in who we pull together. Who's in my system? Who's in my family, right? Congratulations. How old's your baby? 60. Congratulations. Yeah. So, you have family here. You got your bio family. For lots of people, we have to choose our families. And, but really, when you go to a group setting, what's the messages they're providing, right? And so, is that a message I want to take in to my body and soul, or not? And that's what our responsibility is every single day. Is to say who am I interacting with? How am I interacting with them? And if I don't like it, then I need to step back and figure out what I need to do differently, so that my destination changes and goes to a place that I really want to be. And I really believe it's got to be in love, or and really just going back to your question, which is such an important question, right? Is where are we going to go as a community? And because really it is through community consciousness that we can make change. That's why often, we'll go to a protest, right? We go to protest, and then we leave, right? And then that energy gets dissipated because we come back to the individual. So that's why maintaining connection is so important. So I guess in that way, I hope that kind of saw how I view my art and where I am with my art. There's like the spirit dolls hold energy. What's the energy that they hold? What's the energy that I'm putting into this doll that I'm making? What's her little face thing, right? So.
I was gonna say, like, how did you get over the feeling of like being a beginner or like not being good at something? I'm 35 and already feel like I have a feeling of like everything I'm gonna be good at already done.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
it's such a good question, because it is developmental, right? It's just like anything you're learning new. I mean, when I left social work and the job that I did, I had mastered it. And I feel like I was really good at what I did. And even within my art, I in no way am at that place. I still feel very much as a beginner, because there's so much to learn. I love what I do. I feel proud of what I've done. And yet at the same time, my inner feeling is not where that is. And if you think about dating, right? To me, dating is such a perfect example. The first time you go on a date, you're like, you don't know what's going to happen. And then over time, we begin to master our interactions, or we don't, we just keep having to do it over and over and over. But it's still like that learning process of mastery. And so, and maybe that was why the universe brought me to art. It's because, one, I think, I do think there's a lot of energy in this body. And it was like, how's she gonna get it out? How's she gonna get it out? And so here I am, I'm at this art show, and that to me was that pivotal moment. I mean, it pivoted me into a total unknown, total feelings of inadequacy, total, scared to death. Go into my art class, nervous, right, shaking. She asked me if I'd ever taken art before. I'm like, no. And she was so, and Bev was so kind, because she was like, because I didn't even know where to begin on a piece of paper. She said, in 1 minute, she gave me a lesson. And she just kind of charted out that tic-tac-toe grid and showed me that it's not uncommon for people to look at the flow of how do you want to make it a flow. In that moment, she taught me one lesson that is still with me to this day, right? And so if you have mastered a lot, It sounds like you have. It's like, hold on, buddy, you could be in for a great ride of learning something new, right? And to think about what is something that you've ever thought about doing and have never done because you're a new parent, it's kind of like thinking about, what is something that I've never done before? And it makes me scared. Makes me a little scared. Maybe I should do it. Maybe.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come.
You know,
Thank you.
again, you've shown us the power of art
Thank you.
and a strong spirit, eager to learn.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.